Hey, Colt Cabana, how you doing?
I haven't had anything to do with Scott Colton in almost a decade. Probably wanted nothing to do with him even longer than that.
How many Saudi Arabia shows do they have to do to bring back CM Punk?
I'm not doing a single
No,
one
I'm saying
of
how
those.
many.
I don't know. What's the deal on that?
They make a lot of money.
This sounds so shady.
Mohammed, I sincerely apologize to you and all of Saudi Arabia. Okay? Go ahead, leave. Main event night 4 of a buy one, get one free extravaganza. When you come back, I'll still be here.
You're closing the show at WrestleMania.
In my world, women are to be revered and respected.
And yes, you're right. I only pick on women. That's why I'm picking on you two jerks right now.
The reason I support trans kids, trans grown-ups, gay, straight, lesbian, whoever.
You have a vagina. You have a vagina. Nice faux hawk, you homo.
It's like watching someone ski moguls. You just hop from one lie to the next. No shame, no embarrassment. You just don't give a shit.
There was a time where to be tattooed meant something. Many cultures, from barely developed tribes, destined to be utterly eviscerated by Western invaders who actually discovered gunpowder, medicine, ships, clothing, and well, you get the idea. These cultures, plus organized crime rings everywhere from Japan to Russia to Mexico, would use tattoos as a part of their rites of passage for members rising through the ranks. Getting inked was more than just a fashion statement, more than a desperate cry for attention. It actually meant something. It was also exceedingly painful, often looked stupid, and is deeply, deeply haram.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
Just like, say, bending over for a private army's worth of zut.
Before long, our narrator saw a group of men, he does not specify how many, who, quote, appeared to be al-zut. He describes them as, quote, tall, lean, and naked. They went to and began to ride the Prophet of Allah.
Oh my goodness.
Literally, that's what the Arabic says. These tall, black, naked men rode Muhammad, the Arabic word yarkabun, can also be translated as mounted, and they did this all night long.
Alright, that's enough of that, good grief. Imagine having to do a number 2 in the loo the morning after that ordeal. Anyways, tattoos went mainstream in more modern times, with parlors of varying artistic quality cropping up here, there, and everywhere. Those who desperately wanted to be looked at, seem edgy, wear their heart on their sleeve, took a seat in the ink surgeon's chair, wincing as a needle gun punctured their vulnerable flesh 6 ways to Sunday, for hours on end. And for a fairly hefty sum of money, too. But so cool, and so worth it, bro. Let's just look at Jake Paul, shall we? Here's Jake Paul a few years back. Look at how normal he looks. No thank you. Here's Jake Paul now. Look at all that grey-green sludge graffiti sputtered about his body. Now that's a real man right there. That screams tough and cultured. And if you disagree, you're probably some boomer fascist bigot who needs to get with the times. You understand me, you fascist bigot? And look, here's Machine Gay Kelly, that man who had to leave the rap scene because Eminem was a bit mean to him or something. Not content with being covered in totally awesome cool ink, bro, Machine Gays had them covered up with black ink only. Blackface is a thing, was a thing. It's wrong. Minstreling, astonishingly offensive, and I like to think we live in a more enlightened time where that sort of thing doesn't fly. And here we have a major music star, well, a fairly famous guy who uses ChatGPT to write brain-dead lyrics about a vampire's lifestyle, turning his white as the driven snow skin into something as black as midnight. Shocking! And it's spreading. What happens when he runs out of space, and it reaches his face and head? Alright, this is getting a bit off topic, and it hasn't even started yet. There was a time where upholding the realism, fake realism, obviously, of professional wrestling was paramount. That kayfabe must be maintained at all times. The tide began to shift in the late 90s with the likes of Vince Russo taking worked shoot angles mainstream, and then, finally, there was the pipe bomb in 2011. CM Punk, a disgruntled employee, took the mic and let the world have it. This was his network moment.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
Punk trashed the WWE's refusal to push him as a top star, called out a litany of top acts over the years for allegedly being members of Vince McMahon's Kiss My Derriere Club, and set the wrestling world on fire. Or so we were told. One look at the pay-per-view buy rates for Money in the Bank and SummerSlam that year, both headlined by Punk doing this shtick, suggested he was actually a marginal draw, at best, if we feel like being generous. His never-ending WWE title reign continued this trend with poor house show sales, less than stellar ratings, and the WWE quickly opting to rely on John Cena to keep headlining over Lockport Phillip a lot of the time. While hardcore and smarkier fans were gripped by Punk pulling back the curtain of backstage politics and tensions, casual fans were left scratching their heads a lot of the time as he built promos out of dirt sheet hearsay and fourth-wall-breaking quips. Sure, wrestling is fake, but half the fun, you would think, is in watching the talent commit sincerely to playing it like it's real. Over the course of his original wrestling run, from his early days in IWA Mid-South and Ring of Honor, right up to his WWE stuff, he went from just a few tattoos to a whole sea of ink on his skin. But what do these permanently scarred into flesh works of alleged art tell us about the man himself? Just what can we learn? First up, his tummy tattoo. The tummy is often considered a risky area to get inked, due to the skin often stretching with any old weight fluctuation one might have. Regardless, Punk, who has often held quite a loose, dare we say, paunchy belly for a guy whose job demands lengthy time in the gym, that didn't matter. He's straight edge. No alcohol, no drugs. Except caffeine. Apparently that's all well and dandy, even though proper straight edge heads would disagree. No cigarettes, and no sleeping around. Tell that last one to Daphne. Anyway, so proud of refusing to have a little fun in life was the punker that he got in the tattoo chair and had himself stamped, for life, with an outdated phrase from a long-forgotten underground punk music scene. So cool! And if having straight edge, inked across the belly, wasn't clear enough for you, he was good enough to make sure we all knew just how straight edge he was by hitting up his fingers with the all-important phrase, drug-free. Did you get the message yet? The tooth rot and the premature aging does not come from smoking or meth, Mark!
Never in my wildest dreams could I have possibly imagined a straight-edge man could look so much like a meth addict.
Next up, we have his shoulder tattoos, starting with the deeply disturbing Pepsi logo. Oh yes. Straight edge means you can't have a glass of wine with dinner, but you can have a disgusting, excess sugar and chemical soda that will pack on the flab and wreck your skin and teeth among numerous other ailments and issues. And here we have Punk, so in love with this type 2 diabetes elixir that the tattoo gun punctured it into him for good. Now, there's a few stories as to why he got this. We're just going to run through the most famous two. Apparently, at the time, some of Punk's friends were getting beer logo tattoos. What losers? And I know, you'd think a teetotal paragon of virtue. Like that guy who seemingly admitted to deliberately injuring a woman in training in his Ring of Honor days would simply scoff at these utter dweebs. But no, Punk played them at their own game, getting an even more toxic, more gross, more fattening drink inked onto him. Oh, and the other well-known explanation came from resident Vince McMahon bootlicker Bruce Pritchard, who said Punk actually just copied a singer he liked who sported a Coca-Cola tattoo. Either way, so cool, bro, so awesome. And then we have his other shoulder, G.I. Joe nonsense, the Cobra logo. Yes, that's right. A grown man decided his skin should be permanently marked with a symbol from an 80s cartoon show. That spawned not one, not two, but 3 flop attempts at building a movie franchise. Cobra, a terrorist group in most stories if memory serves, seeking to destabilize and destroy the world so that it can take over. Shocking! Just what is meant by having such a symbol on one's flesh. For life! Don't worry, we may even get to Punk's own attempts at wrestling world domination a little later. As his career moved on, with him escaping the poor pay of Ring of Honor for a shot at the big leagues in the WWE, Punk continued to get his arms heavily inked with numerous supposed good luck charms slapped on. So you might go and think, boy, this guy must be very superstitious. I bet he's scared to walk under ladders, and he probably thinks money's coming his way when a ladybird lands on his shoulder. Nice try, Mark. You'd be wrong. Because he also has a tat making very clear that luck is actually for losers. Oh yes. This man sacrificed large portions of his upper body skin to superstitions he actually doesn't like or believe in. Permanent scarring to ensure anyone who doesn't scoff at such silliness as good luck can know they're a great big loser! Even though Punk himself is the one with the word losers quite literally scarred into his flesh. Clearly that's a lot of money and tattoo chair time. Well spent. It must be nice to be just so cool all the time. Some would say that as much as talent is required, it also takes a little bit of luck and timing to make it to the top in a cutthroat, unpredictable entertainment industry like professional wrestling. But anyways, as CM Punk caught fire in the WWE, he continued to add to his collection, letting the rotten green spread conquer more of his body, like a bad infection or moldy cheese left fermenting just a little bit too long. In 2010, he cranked things up a notch by beginning a large piece spread across his man bosoms. A skull and a serpent. The serpent, a classic symbol of the satanic and the traitorous.
You stupid old man. I'm a snake. The greatest thing the devil ever did was make you people believe he didn't exist.
Who else have we heard those kinds of lines from?
Said the reptile with a grin, "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in."
Yes, polar opposites on the surface these two, but in reality, men who present themselves as one thing, whilst largely undermining and destroying the very movements they claim to represent. CM Punk, a so-called man of the people, out to improve professional wrestling and rebel against the lame, sterile mainstream. Constantly just outs the fakery of wrestling, actually, drives away viewers, and humiliates and destroys the first potential rival to the WWE in years. Something we'll get to a bit later. Maybe. I'll see how I feel. A snake, indeed, and one that brings death. Hence the skull. Death to ratings, death to casual interest, death to the idea top talents should be jacked. It gets much more disturbing, though, as 2011 wore on, the chest piece was completed, revealing a brassiere-like shape. Punk, a long-time ally of a child's right to castration and boob implants, shows his solidarity here, having his chest piece shaped like a woman's bra, a symbol of gender-bending pride, topped off with some light, girly flowers in the corners, like floral lingerie. Clearly, only a true ally would have their skin permanently inked in such a manner. No way! No way! Could this have been done to just look cool? No one could so severely lack in self-awareness. Surely! No, of course not. That would be ridiculous. CM Punk, a man who heroically rallied against bigger, more interesting, more engaging stars than himself, who can actually move tickets daring to have lighter schedules and bigger spots, moved over to the UFC to do exactly that after his WWE run, securing a main card spot for his MMA debut off the back of his WWE fame. There, after years of presenting himself as Captain Tough Guy, Punk really showed the world what he's made of when he put his face and ear pain tolerance to the test, allowing Mickey Gall to pulverize him into mush in remarkably quick order. And after that, well, actually the narrator of this video doesn't watch The Challenge. he doesn't watch straight-to-unwatched streaming horror movies? Or fights that involved some kind of retarded photographer that even Dana White hates, so we're gonna skip ahead to Punk's return to wrestling, where he resumes being somewhat relevant. AEW. Despite 9 or so years in the WWE system, Punk shockingly reveals he's actually a punk from a timeline who never made it past Ring of Honor.
August 13th, 2005, I left professional wrestling. August 20th, 2021, I'm back.
Claiming he left professional wrestling all the way back in 2005, and no one raised an eyebrow. It was never explained what happened to the Punk who enjoyed a high-profile run in the PG big leagues afterwards. Shocking stuff. A real curveball of a character choice from Tony Khan and friends. Anyways, Punk, now out of space on his arms and breasts, and seemingly hesitant for now to commit to getting his back filled in, began collecting more ink on his lower portions. Harley Race, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, a seminal figure and champion in the NWA during the 70s, who was also instrumental in the rise to main event glory of fellow legends such as Ric Flair, had a profound influence on CM Punk in his early years. Race was a master of grounded, realistic promos, wild man bumps in the ring, and, perhaps on a not-so-positive note, the inventor of the infamous diving headbutt. Regardless, Race represented old-school American wrestling grit like few others ever have, hitting viewers with a hard-grafting, surly take on in-ring action and character work. Race was a big believer in Punk's talent and potential, and Punk, in turn, has spoken very positively of the former NWA ace on many occasions. So Punk, who loves himself some inked odes to talents he's close to, including tats in reference to trainer Ace Steel and the late Chris Candido as well, eventually got a leg tat in honor of one of wrestling's most convincing tough guys. That's nice. The tattoo in question sports a peacock. You might think that sounds odd at a glance, but no, actually, for a race homage it makes perfect sense. The man himself sported the kinds of tattoos normally associated with tough guys and sailors from the good old days. Weathered pieces of ink on his arms, and one of them was indeed a peacock. So what's the problem here, you might ask? Well, above the peacock is a crown. A crown, you say? Maybe he's just calling old Harley a king of wrestling. After all, even the guy narrating this video took time to point out just how good Race was in his prime. Sure, yeah, okay. Only, past his prime years and towards the end of his in-ring career as a whole, the former NWA Kingpin made a move into cartoon-era WWF, where he was none other than King Harley Race. To move over to Vince McMahon's House of Steroid and nose candy fun back then was indeed to sell out, especially for a territory stalwart like Race, a man who had once fought hard against McMahon's relentless attack on the territory system. Many of them did it, just to be clear. That Connecticut cheddar was hard to say no to, especially as the body broke down and the competition faded further and further into obscurity. For Race, jumping ship seemingly meant netting a big push, with the 1986 King of the Ring going his way. Unfortunately, as has time and again been the case in the years since, winning the tournament forced the winner in question to don a crown, garb, scepter, and make an utter buffoon of themselves, as a delusional royal wannabe. A ludicrous gimmick only one man, of the many men to get stuck with it, has ever actually pulled off.
That's King Booker!
Race, a genuine hard man, a living legend of the business, pranced about, missing the mutton chops and frizzy mess of hair that had once defined his aesthetic, now bleached, shaved, and hamming it up with Bobby Heenan in his corner. The epitome of seriousness reduced to an amusing sideshow act on a broadcast flooded with campy silliness. So yeah, having a crown on a Harley Race tat would be sort of like getting polka dots on a Dusty Rhodes tat, or a dragon cosplay on a Ricky Steamboat one. Is this a true homage, or is it actually a cruel satire? If anyone knows what it's like to sell out, it's Lockport Phillip. Could the peacock feathers mean something more? Birds of a feather flock together, rebels who eventually went crawling to the house that McMahon built in the twilights of their careers. A subconscious admittance that no one past or present sticks to their word. Sad stuff. And a video on the tattoos of Lockport Phillip would simply not be complete without his latest bad boy. What is that? Some kind of Japanese sumo stereotype, seemingly. Okay then. The tattoo itself isn't that interesting, to be honest with you, but this is. Here's Punk with 2 women around half his age. A quarter of his age when we consider how haggard and weather-beaten the man's become. And golly gosh, look at that face. That is pure, unfiltered animal lust. That's the kind of lust that doesn't take no for an answer. And look, that might fly in Punk's new homeland of SA. Very apt initials. But here in the West, it's frowned upon, actually. In fact, no actually means no. Social media is ablaze with the punker, a married man, hanging around the young whammons of WWE, clogging up the show with their self-important cracks, at doing what the men do whilst failing to draw any ratings at all, eating up more than half the show in the process so Triple H can put his forehead against their foreheads or something, while everyone in the stands looks at their watch and asks if Roman Reigns is coming back yet. Everywhere you turn, Greasy Phil's fingers are circling young, fertile pies, all while he's got a middle-aged wife who thinks she's a 12-year-old girl waiting at home, failing to provide him with any offspring, instead referring to said younger ladies as her wrestling children. Does it get much more cringe than that? What's that? This video's more cringe? Well, you know what, pal, you can just go and... Now, no CM Punk video is complete without addressing the Punk simps who heroically take to their semen-stained keyboards every time anyone has anything even vaguely less than positive to say about him. These butts are the same butts, bought and paid for by the WWE maybe, probably, allegedly. That roasted Punk every moment he spent in AEW, who now, merely because he's a turncoat because Luke Perry's son was rude to him or something, love Punk and treat him like a god and king, because he operates under the watchful sniff of Triple Nose. Allow me to assure you, there have been many viewers of wrestling who disliked Punk's work long before he ever even set foot in AEW, long before AEW even existed. Maybe it's his clunky attempts at ripping off Strong Style and Lucha Libre, despite moving, like there's a large lead brick inserted in his rectum. Maybe it's the self-righteous, kayfabe-busting promos with the whole, yeah, wrestling's fake, but what I'm saying here is real kind of rhetoric. Maybe it's all the gay tattoos we've discussed here. Maybe it's the endless hypocrisy and backtracking. I don't know. All I know is wrestling used to be somewhat cool in a silly sort of way, until self-righteous marks for themselves, like the punker, turned it into the Kevin Nash prophecy of the marks being in the ring. Now a niche product for psychotic, not quite humans, and jaded fans who used to like it when it was actually cool. Sad stuff. Think long and hard before you get in the ink chair.